Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Let us see what Goldberg girl has to say. Because obviously today is election day, which is a very important day for Britain. Very important. Because it's going to determine the next several years of our lives. Because who knows, depending on the rectitude or malignancy of the new government, we might be in for a better, smoother, or rougher ride. But I'm just going to read out one or two appropriate comments with regard to the election, and then I am plunging right in with the nitty-gritty of how Harry is potentially in danger of being charged with a criminal offence. And the constitutional implications of that, which seem to have eluded some people, judging from the questions. So, Goldberg Girl says, the Andrew Parker command performance was, of course, necessary to detract from the proudly racist Labour candidate having to be hastily withdrawn. Yes. Well observed, Goldberg Girl. And of course, we know that Channel 4's sympathies lie in the direction of Labour. Alina Perez says, I'm from Cuba, and Lady C knows what she is talking about when talking about countries and communism. Those that have lived it only know how communist leaders destroy countries, families, and lives. They certainly do. Except for one or two die-hard spies like Guy Burgess, you notice no one's ever eager to take up residence in a communist country. I just make that observation for what it's worth. And Vlasta Blaha says, Dear Lady C, you are absolutely right. I grew up and escaped from European country, communist country in my early 20s. It was the best decision I ever made, though I lost everything from possessions, friends, and most tragically, my family. I wish today's younger generation would be careful about selecting their votes. Please look back into Eastern Europe post-war history and the tragedy of leftist communism. Thank you for your work and information. Well, you know what they say. Sometimes you can take a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. So maybe in the coming weeks and months, we will need to revisit the dangers that the new government, whatever the new government is, will present. Because let me tell you, no government that I can think of has ever been a total guardian of its populace's liberties. On the contrary, to an extent, a functional government does as well as it can for the electorate. Regrettably, human beings are politicians. Politicians are human beings. And nests are usually feathered at the expense of the populace. So let us not put our faith in princes, as it says in the Bible, meaning don't put your faith in your political superiors. It's usually misguided. Not always. Some politicians are truly honourable and decent, John Adams being one of them. But let's go on to what P.R. Bassett says, because I want to get into the really juicy stuff quickly. So let's say P.R. Bassett says, I agree, Lady C. People are starting to rebel. However, here in the UK, if Labour gives 16 and 17-year-olds the vote, then we will see a one-party state for the rest of time, because school children are constantly brainwashed in schools by far left woke ideology. God help us all with the upcoming Labour government. We can only hope there will be enough votes to create an opposition party in Parliament. I would also predict that unless Keir Starmer gets rid of Angela Rayner pretty quickly, that's the Labour leader and his deputy, she is just itching to stab him in the back to become leader of the party. I couldn't agree more. And now we are going to be off politics, because by tomorrow we will know what government we have in Great Britain. So let's go with what J. Rubes says. I hope we get to hear the story of the King and Harry crisis in the next episode. Thanks. There's no story to tell per se, J. Rubes. I thought I'd made it clear, but if I didn't, let me particularize. Insofar as I can think of, for many centuries, there has been no Prince of the blood of the United Kingdom who has been charged with a criminal offence. Therefore, if Harry is charged with a criminal offence because of his place in the line of succession and the rights devolving upon him as a result of his birth, he creates a constitutional crisis. And the constitutional crisis will require significant action on behalf of the Crown, because it will be the Crown that is trying Harry for any crime he might have committed and is charged with. Now, one or two people have said, of course, the constitutional meeting will have been to find a way to prevent Harry from being charged with any crime, even if he has committed one. Well, I'm afraid it's not going to be quite that simple. Harry has chosen to mess with group newspapers, which is a part of the Murdoch organisation. Rupert Murdoch is decidedly anti-monarchist. Are they going to cut Harry any favours? Is the palace going to suppress evidence that it knows exists? It would be foolhardy of it to do so, and it would also be dishonourable, and it would not do it. There is ample evidence out there to suggest that Harry has conveniently failed to provide evidence that he should have and must have known the court required him to present. Of course, his lawyers have been clever. They have bounced it in the ball into his court so they don't sully their hands. He sullies his. And they have hoped, presumably, that that will be a get out of jail card for all of them. But it's not necessarily so. Let us see how this progresses. This could be the equivalent for Harry of the Watergate crisis for President Nixon. And don't think that the royal family is going to be dumb enough to jeopardize its position to preserve Harry's. I don't think that's going to happen. Let's see what happens, because if Harry does not withdraw his lawsuit and it proceeds and it turns out that he has made a concerted attempt to pervert the course of justice, especially with a new government, and a government that is going to be less sympathetically inclined to turn a blind eye to the abuses of an overprivileged prince. This is one that can run and run and run. So let's wait and see what happens. Nothing might happen, but it's far more likely that something will. It's not going to be that easy for Harry to wish this away. The most straightforward way of doing it, I'll tell you, is for Harry to throw his hands up, apologize profusely, say he didn't realize, and deliver the goods, which will slit his own throat. So let's see what happens. Therese McNamara says, a friend of mine has written many books. As he said, you would not get rid of any documents, including notes pertaining to your book, in such a short space of time. Harry, of course, has claimed that everything was destroyed. How does Harry know someone doesn't wish to sue him over spare? Would you hang on to everything for your own protection? Of course you would. Well, not only would he, I've got news for you. So would Giacomo Ringer. So would Giacomo Ringer. So would Penguin Random House. The book had to have been legaled. What does legal mean? It means that the lawyers went over it with a fine-tooth comb to see that there was nothing defamatory, unlawful, etc. It's not the same as checking for grammatical errors or factual errors. It's checking for legal offences. So everything would have been examined with a fine-tooth comb. I don't think the lawyers are allowed to destroy their files except within a certain period of time. I know in England it's 15 years, at least it used to be. I don't know if it still is, but it was, and most likely still is. Let's see. This is a very wide net that newspapers can cast, and Mr. Justice Fancourt has given them the right to cast it. I do not think that Sir Clive Alderton or the King or the Keeper of the Privy Purse are going to be dumb enough to try to collude with Harry in the suppression of evidence. Ultimately, Harry is presenting everybody with a choice. your skin or mine? Do you think they're going to choose his? I doubt it. Carl O'Brien says, Lady C, first of all, thank you for providing us with news of these crisis talks. My pleasure. And it's interesting because this is not yet news, because this is only on this channel. Let's see what happens down the line when other people are going to discover that they have found this, what we're speaking about, and they are going to reveal the news the way they often do. Thinking that second is spelled F-I-R-S-T. Anyway, let it always be known you were the first, capital always, capital first, to discuss these matters, much like you were the first to reveal Charles and Diana had marital issues, that the Sussexes did not ask the late Queen for her permission in naming their second child after her, etc., etc. Thank you very much for noticing. You are so lucky, we are so lucky, to have you as a voice of reason in these dark and difficult times, no matter what country we all hail from. Oh, Carl O'Brien, my head is swelling. Thank you, you sweetie pie. Quite chilling, though, what the online trolls are saying about Mary Tillman. But you know, the SS is still the SS, whether it is the 1930s or the 2020s. I know the award controversy is now in part a distraction from has-been's destruction of evidence. But this award will come and go within a matter of weeks. That court case is not going away anytime soon. Carl O'Brien, thank you. The voice of reason speaketh. You are the voice of reason. It's not going away anytime soon. But the fact of the matter is the pusillanimous press is only going to jump on it when they know it is safe to do so. You know, they're so cowardly, they're so craven, they're so self-protective, and they are such brown lipstick wearers that they will function as a pack, but do they have the courage to function individually? No. But let us see what happens, because, you know, wolves fight in a pack, I think. Anyway, whatever pack animals fight in a pack, they're pack animals. And you're right, this court case is not going away anytime soon. And as soon as the mainstream media have the opportunity to jump in and tear things to bits, they're going to do it. Wait for it. But in the meantime, they're going to show how cowardly they are. Kay Maram says, question, why is it that the wife is all over Harry like a cheap suit, pun intended, trying to usurp his glory when the publicity is positive, but nowhere in sight when he is involved in controversy? I think it's called a fair weather friend, don't you? That's one name. There are lots of other names that I don't think I need to particularize, which will give a clue as to the fact that Meghan's there for the credit. Meghan's not there for anything else. Megsy Baby knows how to protect Megsy Baby. And also, let's remember, Megsy Baby is so adept at feathering her own nest and so adept at always doing things with an eye to her advantage long term, that Megsy Baby is never going to stand between her access would be a better word, her access to a complaint against Harry should she ever need to make one in terms of anything marital. Lisbeth Garrow says, Harry's strong connection to sports is to borrow other people's polo ponies every few months. So we in the States found out that Kate Jackson, the head of ESPN, is best friends with Serena and Meg's female agent. Says it all. We have a petition going around with 50,000 signatures on it so far. Mary Tillman is getting roasted by the Sussex Sewer Squad, by the way. No surprise there. No surprise there. Mary Tillman is only an honourable and decent woman who actually had the courage to, when she was addressing Congress, to read them the Riot Act and point out that the suppression of her son's death and the truth surrounding it wasn't only an attack on the truth and on them, but on all Americans. So, Mary Tillman is obviously somebody who is as noble as her son was. Mary Barry says, Lady C, remember that Serena said she talks to Harry for better up support and life advice. Yeah, a winner needs to find out how to play the game from a loser. What next? And we, of course, are dumb enough to believe it. Anyway, to resume the question, did we read that her husband Alexis was invested or a partner in Better Up? He is an investor in Better Up, evidently. That's right. Was Serena also a partner? Well, she doesn't need to be. Her marital companion and conjugal partner is a partner. So they're partners, not in law, but in monetary connection. Alexis, Serena, Harry, and Meg's baby. Seems as though Disney keeps getting black eyes. Doesn't it just? Mitzi says, nothing ever comes out of Harry and Meghan's blatant wrongdoing. Meghan boldly committed perjury in a court of law, and when caught, she simply said she forgot. Now Harry deletes evidence and simply said he didn't know. They do this because they can. They don't only do this because they can. They do this because they are thoroughly, in my opinion, dishonest and disreputable. And they are manipulative and devious, and they are seeking to create an advantage over those who are their critics or who oppose them or who they oppose. I think it's called fighting dirty. Harry has actually submitted a false witness statement because Harry has said there are only 5 when there are clearly many more. That is a falsehood to a court, depending on how severely the judge wishes to deal with the matter, is pretty serious. Of course, many judges in this country, and I dare say in the United States, but certainly in this country, that I can speak of this country with much experience, many judges will take the view, oh, it's a civil case, everybody lies, so we're just not going to bother about them lying. we'll just accept it and move on. I mean, you see it all the time. Rebecca Vardy, for instance, she was a brazen liar of the first order in her suit against Colleen Rooney. Did the judge refer the matter to the police for investigation, for them to hand it on to the Department of Public Prosecutions? No, he didn't. He should have, but he didn't. Why? Because most judges are very lenient with civil litigants lying. But let us see what happens in this instance. Because this is an opportunity for the press to give Harry the knockout blow that he has been trying to give them. Mary Lou says, Lady C, what happened? 1 year ago you said Harry and Meg were separating. 2 exclamation marks. They're still together. 2 exclamation marks. Megs is pulling the strings. 1 exclamation mark. King Charlie, it's reported, is on his way to sunny California. 1 exclamation mark. Who's in charge? Why, Meg's baby. Mary Lou, if you've listened to what I said, I didn't say that Harry and Meghan were separating. I said that I had heard it from 2 very reliable sources close to them that they were separating. And I had reservations as to whether I should believe any of it at all. Listen to what I said. You know, you can't say that I said they were separating when that's not what I said. It's always helpful when people actually listen to what someone says, because if I say they have said or they have provided people with the information and it is possible they are playing games and deceiving people and I don't necessarily believe it, that doesn't mean I have said they are separating. That means that their plants have said they're separating. So let's be clear about what I said then and what the ordinary meaning of my words was. Okay? So, to answer the second part of your question, David Robinson plunges in with it as well. So I'll read what he says. I read today that King Charles is wanting to travel to California to visit the family. I hope he does and shows us that he is a bigger man than the sum of all the gossip and speculative garbage found on this and similar channels on YouTube and other social media. Well, David Robinson, I don't know if you and Mary Lou are the same person, different individuals, have the same employer, eat the same sugar cane, sweetie pie, or are genuine. So I'll extend you the courtesy of treating you as if you're genuine. Even though personally I think you're not. However, I'm going to act as if you are. Yes, of course the king is beetling over to California because the king is so idle and has nothing to do and is so young and is in such good health that he's going to beetle over to California to go and pay court to your employers. Oh, sorry. I didn't mean your employers. I forgot. I'm supposed to be believing that you're genuine, or at least pretending that I believe that you're genuine as I treat you accordingly as if you were. So let me rephrase that, okay? You see, you're not the only one who can be clever. Let's put it that way. Speculative garbage. Speculative garbage. What is speculative garbage? That Harry is in deep trouble, that there's a possibly brewing constitutional crisis as a result of his misconduct illegally, that he and Meghan are disgraces and acknowledged as such on both sides of the Atlantic. Actually, it's quite obvious. I shouldn't even extend you the courtesy of, for a second, acting as if what you've said is anything but very supportive of Harry and Meghan. And I just hope you're being paid for it. So now Heidi says, Pat Tillman and his brother enlisted together and went through ranger training together. They were always in the same group. Pat's vehicle was a few vehicles in front of his brother's. The convoy was ambushed, hitting Pat's vehicle because he was toward the front. His brother saw what was happening and ran towards his brother. He accompanied Pat's body back home. Such a sad, tragic loss. Not only a sad, tragic loss, Mary Tillman had to fight tooth and nail to get the truth out of the authorities because they lied. And they continued to lie until she made it clear that she knew they were lying. And she testified before Congress stating, and I'll repeat it, I said it a bit earlier, but I'm going to quote her exactly now. The deception surrounding this case was an insult to the family, but more importantly, its primary purpose was to deceive a whole nation. Yes, it was. And why was it? Because the fact of the matter is, the United States of America and the United Kingdom and their allies, what significant right did they have to be in either Afghanistan or Iraq, which, if I recall correctly, were Pat Tillman's two areas of our operation, I suppose you'd say. We now know that we were misled into the Iraq War, and look at the mess that we left Afghanistan, we being all of the allies. Mao Girl says, read the poll as being the reason why Harry won the award. Why was his name even on the poll in the first place? He had no business being a choice for the bots to choose. That's absolutely right. He had no business being a choice, except, as we've established, Serena Williams and Megzy Baby's agent and ESPN or EPSN, whatever it's called, are all in bed together, romping. So Maureen Shepherd says, Hi, Lady C. Thank you for all your very interesting videos. I look forward to and watch everyone. Thank you. During this election time, I have started to wonder why we have so many political parties to choose from. They all seem to end up the same anyway. What are your views on the idea of us having just one team of people in Parliament who are answerable to us, the British people, and who would give us the chance to vote on important matters before they action them? It seems to me that as soon as a party is voted in, they get free rein to decide and do whatever the hell they want. Then the public say, we didn't vote for that. I appreciate my naivety on this subject, so would welcome your input. Many blessings, Lady C, and thank you. Well, first of all, the public could not be involved in referenda on a frequent basis. It would be a very inefficient way of running a country. So the fact that there is an elected government which then acts on behalf of the people without constant reference to the people means that there is greater efficiency. Also, no government can always tell the citizens of a country exactly what is going on at all times, because certain matters of state have to be kept secret. Otherwise, you are tipping off your opponents nationally and internationally. Your opponents being your opposing countries, countries that you have different interests from, even allies. But what you are suggesting would be a government of effectively national unity, which I suspect, reading John Adams, is pretty much what he and many of the founding fathers had in mind for the United States of America, whereby you would have a group of people who were elected and would then, wherever possible, further the policies upon which they were elected. Now, if it's too wide-ranging, it would be a recipe for disaster, because you would then have say, an MP from Bristol North, or a senator from Wichita, Kansas, conflicted with an MP from Worthing West, or from New York. And you would then have conflict between various, so one wants this, the other. So it would be beyond proportional representation. It would, to a large extent, be possibly unworkable. And you would then have such chaos, and the government would be so bogged down in inability to actually function, because there would be such constant disagreements, that you would end up having a dictatorship. You would have a strong leader who would have to intervene to sort out the mess. So, but it is possible that we are heading into an age where people are more aware of the fact that the political parties lie and then proceed to ignore their manifestos, and they don't do what they have said they're going to do, and they are really giving us the finger. So who knows, with time the convention could arise whereby governments are bound legally to fulfill the manifestos upon which they are elected. So that way you could have one party, two parties, three parties, even 10 parties. And depending on the form of government, they would be obliged to actually respect their manifestos. I don't think that would actually work with anything but the first party past the post. But if you had three parties with conflicting manifestos, that would right there be less workable. And government needs to work to be effective. But I suspect the way forward in the future is the party first past the post has to fulfill the conditions under which it was elected, failing which it should be turfed out of power. I think that's a way forward. As you can imagine, it's very unlikely that any party is going to want, or any politician is going to want, to be so restricted as to actually do what they are being paid to do, not when they can feather their nest instead. Now, I'm being very cynical because not all politicians are that self-interested. Unfortunately, too many are. And I'm going to end with what Sol Everici says. The Russian ploy was also used, often successfully, against Donald Trump in the US. It was all a lie from the get-go, still is. It's quite extraordinary that whenever our politicians want to call out the bogeyman, they say about the Russian threat. I don't recall the Russians having said that they want to break up the United States into individual states. But I do seem to recall that President Biden is quoted as having said that he would like to break up I nearly said the Soviet Union, break up the Russian Federation into, I think it was 22 separate states. One does not have to like or support Vladimir Putin to understand that he is used as the bogeyman by politicians in the West to discredit each other and to dupe us, the populace. Well, we're not that dumb, I hope. At least the people I know aren't that dumb. And I certainly, going off the comments on this channel, don't think that anybody who views this channel is that dumb either. Yes. Yeltsin, when communism fell, wanted to join the family of nations. And he was told and the Europeans accepted him at first. And the Americans said no, they didn't want him. The American government, not the American people. They didn't want Yeltsin, they didn't want Russia. No, no, no. Since when? They have used Russia as the bogeyman. Russia is interfering in elections. I do not recall that Russia toppled the Ukrainian government with a coup. I don't recall that happening. But I do recall that we in the West assisted in the toppling of the lawfully elected Ukrainian government. because we thought it was too pro-Russian. So, bogeyman? I don't think so. I don't think so for a second. It's very convenient when our politicians want to practice dark arts, usually against each other and against us. Let's remember who their dark arts are directed against, that they then bring in the bogeyman of Russia. Quite interesting and totally ridiculous. And it, as Nigel Farage said, it's the Russian hoax. And we should not allow our political leaders to insult our intelligence to the extent that they feel entitled to. We need to tell them, you are elected to protect our interests, and when you fail to do so, you need to be accountable to us. And they're not accountable to us. And on both sides of the Atlantic, especially in the last few years, they have been singularly failing to protect our interests. Do they think it is in our interest to have all that is going on happening? If they do, they are the ones who really should be looked at. Or maybe we should send them to Montecito and we can create a new asylum, the asylum of Harry, Meghan, and the politicians. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. Please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Godspeed. And if you have truly enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Bye-bye.